The prevailing narrative is a calculated misdirection. You have been conditioned to watch the skies for incoming ballistic missiles, a high-cost, high-signature, kinetic event. This is a strategic error. The first strike in the next systemic conflict will not be an explosion. It will be silence. The true vectors of strategic liability are not warheads. They are the undersea fiber optic cables that serve as the central nervous system for 97% of global data and trillions in daily financial transactions. CSIS reports confirm the catastrophic economic impact of severing these nodes. It is the ultimate asymmetric attack, low kinetic cost, maximum systemic disruption. This is not theoretical. According to Taiwan's National Security Bureau, Chinese cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure have surged by 113% daily since 2023. This is not vandalism. It is a pre-attack protocol mapping the digital kill chain required to induce strategic paralysis. The objective is to create a blind Leviathan, a superpower with immense kinetic force, but its eyes and ears have been removed. It cannot see threats, command assets, or process transactions. A blind Leviathan, already experiencing a solvency crisis and unable to counter low-cost drone warfare, is left with a single, horrifying protocol. When you cannot see if you are under nuclear attack, your doctrine defaults to launch on warning. The silence is the trigger. It is a mathematical certainty designed to force catastrophic escalation as the only remaining lever. War is a solvency event. When a state can no longer afford the kinetic cost of conventional victory, it faces a strategic liability. This isn't a failure of morale. It is a failure of liquidity. According to RUSI analysis, the conflict in Ukraine morphed into a severe domestic liability for Russia, an unpopular war draining a fragile economy. This forces a pivot. The objective is no longer victory on the battlefield. The objective is to make the cost of conflict unbearable for the adversary through cheaper non-traditional vectors. This pivot is a mathematical certainty driven by cost-benefit analysis. The high kinetic cost of a main battle tank is replaced by the efficiency of asymmetric assets. Reports confirm the future of conflict is drone warfare. This is a shift from expensive, manpower-intensive platforms to low-cost, high-volume systems that can overwhelm sophisticated defenses through sheer numbers. The solvency crisis in conventional arms forces an innovation cycle into cheaper, more destructive protocols. The cyber domain is the primary front for this new economic warfare. Taiwan's National Security Bureau reports a 113% daily increase in Chinese cyber attacks on critical infrastructure since 2023. This is not random aggression. It is a calculated strategy to degrade an opponent's operational capacity without firing a single shot. Each attack is a low-cost probe, testing for systemic vulnerabilities that can be exploited for maximum economic damage at the critical moment. This strategic pivot is enabled by a systemic decay in global order. The World Trade Organization is described as being on the brink of crisis, signaling the collapse of multilateral rules that once contained state aggression. Simultaneously, Reuters reports that banking regulators are actively softening capital rules. This is not incompetence. It is the deliberate weakening of our own financial resilience. A fragile system cannot absorb shocks, making it more susceptible to the very asymmetric attacks it incentivizes. The motive is solvency. When a nation-state is too financially brittle to win a conventional war, and its adversaries can inflict strategic damage with low-cost asymmetric attacks, the playbook narrows. The final lever is not tactical. It is systemic. It is a launch-on-warning posture applied to economic and strategic threats, where the only logical response to impending defeat is catastrophic escalation to reset the entire board. The math doesn't lie. The core of the strategic liability is a simple, brutal equation. A report cited by the Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, puts the kinetic cost of a modern main battle tank at approximately $5 million. The cost of the asymmetric system that neutralizes it? A $500 FPV drone. This is the democratization of violence. It's not a political theory, it's a protocol of economic warfare. The monopoly on high lethality kinetic force, once held exclusively by solvent nation-states, has been shattered. The barrier to entry for asset liquidation on the battlefield has collapsed by a factor of 10,000. A legacy military designed for capital-intensive warfare is now an unsustainable financial liability. When a state faces this kind of economic attrition, where its conventional power is rendered insolvent by low-cost, asymmetric attacks, its strategic playbook shrinks. It is a mathematical certainty. When you cannot win conventionally and you cannot afford to lose, the only remaining lever is catastrophic escalation. The mainstream lens is focused on regional flare-ups. This is a critical misdirection. These zones of instability are not the primary conflict. They are proxy laboratories. They serve as controlled environments to field test and refine the vectors of 21st century warfare. Financial destabilization coupled with low-cost asymmetric attacks. The objective of these laboratories is to calibrate the precise amount of pressure required to trigger a systemic solvency crisis. While you observe kinetic events, the primary assault is economic. Global regulators are systematically softening capital rules for banks, a fact documented by Reuters. This isn't incompetence, it's the prepositioning of a strategic liability, creating a fragile system designed to fail under specific engineered stress. Within these gray zones, the kinetic cost of attack is driven to near zero. Drone warfare, now confirmed by market analysts as the future of conflict, allows for the attritional degradation of an adversary's assets without risking conventional forces. Simultaneously, cyber attacks on critical infrastructure are used as a force multiplier. According to Taiwan's National Security Bureau, Chinese cyber attacks have surged by 113% daily since 2023. This is the blueprint for defeating a superpower. Bleed it through 1,000 low-cost cuts. This entire protocol is possible only because the framework of global rules has collapsed. The World Trade Organization is in crisis, rendering international trade law unenforceable, as detailed by the SAIS Review of International Affairs. Without a multilateral referee, the gray zone becomes a lawless battle space. There is no penalty for staging these proxy attacks. It is a zero-sum environment where strategic aggression is incentivized. Therefore, the location of the next systemic shock is not a single country. It is the network itself. The proxy laboratories are the launch sites, calibrated to inject financial and infrastructural poison into the system. The mathematical certainty is this. When a nation's balance sheet is broken and it cannot afford a kinetic response, yet it is being defeated by asymmetric means, its final strategic option becomes a launch-on-warning protocol, escalating to a catastrophic, non-conventional outcome to prevent total systemic collapse. The gray zones are where the countdown begins. The core strategic liability is no longer a balance sheet. It is the command and control network itself. The protocol is known as Launch on Warning. It is a Cold War relic, a dead-hand switch designed to ensure a retaliatory strike is launched the instant enemy missiles are detected, before they impact. The logic is zero-sum. Absorb a first strike, and you lose the capacity to respond. The system is therefore biased toward action. This protocol has a systemic vulnerability. Its entire function depends on the integrity of sensor data. According to reports from Taiwan's National Security Bureau, Chinese cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure have surged by 113% daily. This is not random noise. Analysts at RUSI identify this as a probing vector, testing the resilience of early warning systems. This creates the fog of digital war. A successful cyber attack does not need to destroy a satellite. It only needs to blind it. If the radar screens go black, the commander faces a binary choice with incomplete data. Is this a system failure or a precursor to a kinetic strike? The doctrine of launch on warning removes the option to wait. Fear is irrelevant. Protocol dictates the response. In the absence of data, the system is engineered to assume the worst-case scenario. The asymmetric, low-cost cyber attack forces the defender into a catastrophic escalation lever. The equation is now complete. The collapse of global rules, which the SAIS Review of International Affairs confirms, is placing multilateralism on the brink, removes international guardrails. The softening of bank capital rules reported by Reuters is not a recovery mechanism. It is the deliberate reduction of systemic shock absorption. This manufactured solvency crisis is a strategic liability, timed to coincide with the perfection of low-cost asymmetric warfare, which Reuters identifies as the future of conflict. When a state cannot afford the kinetic cost of conventional victory, its calculus shifts. Adversaries are not idle. Taiwan's National Security Bureau reports a 113% daily increase in Chinese cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure. This is not warfare. It is battlefield preparation. They are mapping the network, testing vulnerabilities, and placing the digital charges. It is the rehearsal for an event designed to be economically catastrophic, but kinetically deniable. This is the new protocol: maximum leverage with zero attribution. The calibration forecast. Within the next 12 months, a coordinated logic bomb will trigger a 72-hour shutdown of a primary U.S. West Coast container port and its adjacent cloud data center cluster. The attack vector will be a zero-day exploit in logistics and power management software, creating a cascading failure. The disruption will be officially attributed to a non-state actor. No nation will claim responsibility. It is a non-kinetic test shot to measure our response doctrine and economic pain tolerance before systemic decapitation. The cost will be calculated not in lives, but in liquidity.